Okay. Right. Dingly dong. Wow, they had some reverb going on there.
Yeah, it's the powers of my vocals.
What do they call that? Your gizzards.
Larynx? Gizzards, that's right, it's the technical term. You get this power of my gizzards. All the great singers have sturdy gizzards, you'll find.
Hi everybody and welcome to Short Fuse, Series 1, Episode 1, the pilot episode, if you will. I'm Duncan Roberts and I'm here with Ollie O'Donoghue. Say hi, Ollie.
Hi.
Thanks for that. And we're here to discuss any sort of concept, any sort of idea, any sort of technology, anything really, and decide whether we are long or short on it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to debate, we're going to discuss, we may even bring in experts at some point, and then by the end, we'll see if we're sticking to our guns or if we've had a change of heart. For a bit of background, I'm a bit of a tech optimist, so I'm a bit of a nerd. I like digging into technology. I feel pretty good about it. I think ultimately it's taking us to a better place. And Ollie, I guess you'd describe yourself as a bit more of an economic realist.
I think I like that description. It's incredibly generous. I mean, I've effectively built a career off of playing devil's advocate to people like Duncan and just been like, I think it's much harder than that, actually.
But... That's
exactly. Because it's much easier for me to be like, but you haven't thought about this incredibly minor detail, so your thinking's flawed.
That you don't understand, Duncan. Oh, now I'm scuffed.
But neither of us understand. That I understand a little bit more than you, and therefore use to my advantage. Just in-house miserable person, I think is the role I've always played over my career.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to your company. So, the idea here is that we've both worked in technology for a good number of decades. We've got a bit of background in this stuff, and we want to just talk about it, enjoy talking about it, and see where we sit on various topics. The first one that we're going to discuss today is Worldcoin and its associated concept of UBI, or Universal Basic Income. And we're going to see if we're bullish or bearish on it. So let's go. Ollie.
Well, look, can you do, how about we do both our audience and me a favour, and if you could quickly walk us through Worldcoin. So I can do UBI, but Worldcoin. So I don't want to make a bet until I know more about it. And I think you seem to know more about it than I do.
All right. Okay. So Worldcoin, it's a really interesting topic, and it's been around for a while now. It's an interesting company, I should say. It's been around for a while now. It's founded by a few people, one of whom is Sam Altman, is getting a lot of investment. But the idea is to kind of prove your humanity, prove that you are a real human, and give yourself some kind of digital credentials. And in a true kind of sci-fi fashion, it has this orb. Everybody doesn't get an orb. There are just these orbs that Worldcoin kind of owns, and they scan your retina. Unfortunately, they don't kind of float in front of you. You have to hold them. It's not that sci-fi. But you scan your retina, and it takes your biometrics, and it creates a record of your biometrics on the Worldcoin blockchain. So, I don't know if blockchain is a dirty word, but it hashes it on the blockchain, which I think is the cool way of putting it, creates that record, anonymizes it, crucially, and I'm sure that will come up in conversation later. And you can use those credentials to prove your humanity, to log into systems, to prove you're not a bot, to prove to people that you are who you say you are. But connected to it is Worldcoin itself. And that's essentially a cryptocurrency. I don't know if I'm doing it a disservice by calling it a cryptocurrency. It's a token that has a monetary value, and those kind of tokens are global. They can be distributed, and they form the basis for what will or could become a universal basic income for people. So essentially you're saying, here I am, I am a human, give me my portion of my money. So it's a really interesting concept when you link it to Sam Altman's other pretty obvious big project around generative AI as a whole, superintelligence, AGI, because it has implications. So this is the offshoot of what OpenAI, ChatGPT, generative AI in general will do to society. What do we think about it? Do we think that's a goer or not? Are we long or short? But Ollie.
So yeah, Duncan, you've sold it to me, I think, in that case. So I can see a huge need to verify a human as a human, looking at the way the technology is evolving. And we talk about this a lot from sometimes a cybersecurity perspective, social engineering perspective, but being able to validate that, hey, this is, you are Duncan Roberts, and I can transfer the money over to you, even as an example of something that might happen on a day-to-day basis when Duncan's embezzling money from me. I need to know it's him that it's going to, and not exactly some intermediary that's interloped in between us. I don't feel like I go to a single web page these days without having to fill in one of those captchas, right? Which is ostensibly trying to do the same thing, but is just not going to cut it in the future, right? Which I guess is the overarching challenge.
Can you tell that a ladder is a ladder? But the interesting thing about those captchas is they're not really bothered about whether you're saying a ladder is a ladder. They're just bothered about your mouse movements and if they're human or not.
So I had a slightly different part of that story, which is that actually what you're doing is training a bot. So you're classifying images. So it's not validating you as human at all. It's just like, we just get a free 10 seconds of labor from this individual before we move on to our page.
Massive anxiety, because the ones where you get like one whole picture and it says, click all the buttons that have a bit of a bicycle in it.
And there's a bit of a bicycle overlapping.
Yeah,
I'm the same.
Of a bicycle, I've just clicked the whole picture. Like,
yeah,
that looks like a bit of the bicycle, but it's only in one tiny corner. And I worry that I'm going to do it wrong and I'm going to get locked out.
They don't. They seemingly, I've tested a few and they don't seem to actually care. I think, I quite buy into the idea that you are just doing some work for an AI company just to access like whatever page it is you're trying to get hold of. So, long story short, I'm buy in that case on both. I think I can understand the verification point being incredibly important, and I can also, and we can dig into this a little bit later on, I can also see the need to redistribute the proceeds from a variety of things, most notably the encroachment of AI into the workplace and into the economy in some way that's meaningful. And UBI is a pathway towards that. It comes with an array of challenges, obviously. But if this helps solve that in some way, then I think it's going to be pretty widely adopted.
Yeah, I'm short, right? I'm short on this. I think the
scandalous.
Are we ever going to have an episode where we're both like the same, and it's just like a 2-minute episode where we're like, yeah, great, cool, bye?
I think in that you're right. So from a format point of view, from this point onwards, one of us will have to go first, and the other person just has to be like, you idiot. Yeah. You fool.
We'll find something to talk about. We're just like being violent agreement with each other.
Fair.
I'm sure. Do you know the reason I'm sure is not because of the idea; it's because of the technology itself, and it's not because of the technology implementation. It's with people's adoption of it. I think people will be incredibly reticent to scan their eyes using an unknown thing that looks like I don't know if you've seen a picture of it, but it does look like something out of a sci-fi film. I think people will be worried about their data. And I think there's a difference between being worried about your data on using Facebook or X or whatever, where it's kind of scraping your data of what you do, or Google or whatever. And there's a difference between that kind of data scraping and getting up in your face and scanning your eyeballs.
It's very active, isn't it? It's very invasive.
Yeah.
But there's an interesting point to this, right? And you know what? You're right, because the more I reflect on things like identity cards, for example, and just how immediately people are just like, no, you will not provide me with an identity card for whatever context, whatever reason. But there's also this other interesting aspect, which in a lot of surveys, people trust companies more than governments.
Yeah.
So if you have to solve this problem, let's say you have to solve this problem because AI is so pervasive and disintermediating human-human relationships in a variety of different contexts, you just have to. There's no way of ignoring the problem. Let's say for the next 10 years, there's a bet that I would make that government solutions, if depending on your view of the government, they could even do it in the first place. Would be viewed more skeptically and cynically than perhaps ones from a technology giant. Now, I don't know. The surveys say one thing, and then what actually happens is another. But you're right. I guess whilst an orb would be cool, the idea that I give it, this company I've never really heard of, all of my biological data to be, to use your phrase, hashed onto a blockchain. Now, you're a tech guy and get that. I semi get that because you explain it to me, but a lot of people are going to be like, "You're going to do what with it?"
Yeah, I just don't know if my mum's going to be up for having like an orb in her face, or that sounds odd, but I don't know if.
And it's a core part of the business model.
Like if people generally are going to be okay with because it's not something you're doing at home, right? You're not getting your phone and scanning your eye and going, I am who I am. You're going to a centralized location, you're getting scanned, and then you're leaving with your Worldcoin account, your verification, and your little pennies at the moment in change to kind of supplement your income. I just think I get the idea, and I think, like you say, very rightly, something's got to be done when AI is completely pervasive. I'll come on to this in a minute, but I just think this is too dystopian. It's like somebody's seen a dystopian film and gone, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I'll design this orb so it looks like a Cylon or whatever to kind of is it that's not a Cylon, is it?
Yeah,
that's Buck Rogers. That's Buck Rogers.
It's something.
But anyway, I'm long on the idea that something's needed, but I'm short on this implementation.
But then, if the bugbear is design, right? Which it sounds like, and I haven't seen this stuff, but again, you've just described it into a way that's like, I think I probably would still go for it. I personally, I think I'd still go for it if I felt like it solved a problem. But if the same measure can be replicated by going into, let's say, a photo booth, right? Because we already do that for passport photos, and you have to look a very specific way, and it scans and all sorts of other stuff like that. Then would you feel differently? And I think that's the really interesting part as we go through this period is no one knows how people will react to different things. So let's say there's an orb in one room and just a normal old photo booth that you'd have in a supermarket that you use for passport photos in another, and they basically deliver the exact same outcome. Instinctively, I feel like the photo booth one would win because people are used to it. But we don't know. People might be like, no, I want to go on the orb. I want this thing. Yeah. But in most cases, I personally don't feel, and again, personally being the phrase there, I don't feel like that's any more invasive than anything else happens. I'm one of these people that kind of thinks like, what's the worst that's going to happen here?
Well, do you know what? I was thinking about this morning, just before we were kind of setting about to record. And one is that when you travelled, you never used to have to do your fingerprints at passport control. Yeah. Now you have to do all your fingerprints at passport control and all your biometrics. And I still don't know how those machines work at Heathrow Airport that get your face and then open the gates. Is there somebody sitting behind them looking at all the things, or is it automated? I don't know. Is it facial recognition? I genuinely don't know how they work. I should probably look that up. So the idea about scanning biometrics certainly isn't new. And the other thing I was thinking about, when I was younger, I was one of these people who was a bit like, I'm not a bad person. They can have all my data, and it's only a problem if you're doing something wrong, kind of guy. And as I get older, maybe I'm not doing more nefarious things as I get older, but as I generally get older,
that we know about,
yet. But like, the more people collect data on you, it's not necessarily those people who are going to do bad things with that data. it's where does that data end up, and what if there's a change in government? What if there's that? What if there's this? Then there's that stuff, and suddenly you could you could be in hot water because they've got information about you that otherwise they wouldn't have had. So I don't know.
And you find that almost cultural reluctance to share information in regions that have been through governments that have used that information badly.
Yeah,
have gone through government databases to say, like, actually these are the people that we think are bad and these are the people that think are good, and then as a result people are like, well, I'm not going to share anything with you. So it's difficult. I mean, I guess from a conceptual point of view, there'll just be a tipping point, right? So either AI and a variety of other actors will create this problem that means you have to. So the issue of not being validated as a human is a greater issue than the risk of having your data stored somewhere, right? Yeah. So it's possible, like, hey, do you know what? When Duncan's embezzling money from me, and I want to make sure that the money gets to Duncan so he doesn't, threaten me again or something like that. I need to make sure it lands in Duncan's account. Don't try and talk yourself out of this charge, right? This is a cry for help.
Very elaborate cry for help.
Yes, like let's say I need to transfer money over to you for whatever reason. I want to make sure it lands with you. To me, that money being disintermediated by a Duncan bot created by a third party it feels like a more immediate risk than the distant risk I have from people knowing who I am and knowing who you are, right? Because realistically, they probably already do.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of information is already freely available, and information that doesn't feel as personal like biometric data, but is more impactful. It's like, for example, how easy is it for me to find your address and then come to your house where you live and all of your personal possessions are. That's I would imagine relatively easy. Is that data more valuable or less valuable than biometric data in terms of how it could impact your life? I would say significantly so.
Yeah. It's
and yet we don't worry about putting our address places. We
speak for yourself. No, I know. Yeah, our address is quite easily as soon as you sign up to the electoral register and stuff, it's I guess it's semi-available.
Exactly, and there's always a trade-off. So your example of the passport one, so that is quite invasive. I mean, just going through, you kind of pat it down, you have your passport, all your documentation, fingerprints. I think in some places there are iris scanners. It does measure your face. To your point, now that you've questioned whether or not there's a human in the bot looking at my face and being like, yeah, this looks like the guy, or he looks like he's gained weight, but it is the guy.
Way different from my passport photo as well. Like I have very short beard, very short hair, no glasses. Like much less.
I think it scans the symmetry of your face and is like, broadly speaking, that nose is where it should be for this guy.
Yes,
that's what I think it does. Yeah, but it's quite invasive. But you know what? We accept it if we want to travel somewhere.
Yes,
so I have to do this to travel somewhere.
And
it makes my flight safer. And
yeah, you're willing to give that up so that you can go and lie on a sun lounger in Zante or something.
Yeah, and Worldcoin presumably, based on what you've described, is trying to do the same with that incentive of, like, if you do this, we'll give you some Worldcoin.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the trade-off. It's like you'll have some of this currency, and the bet you would make as an early adopter is that currency is going to be worth more and have more trading value.
I guess the idea
better
is
to get in early.
If say the super intelligence happens or AI reaches a point where it has taken many jobs, you're like, if you want your money, you got to do this. And that then becomes very, I was going to use the word compelling there. It's not compelling. It's more like mandatory.
Well, but again, the use of public services, the use of a bank, these are things that you need. And if the risk profile for a bank is like, if we don't know you're a human, because the risk is that you're one person pretending to be 100 people with the superpower that is an AI technology, it won't be difficult for both the government to mandate to that bank, like, you have to prove that this is who they say they are. You already do, or already do for a variety of things. And you think about how money laundering checks work. They go through absolutely everything as someone's just moved house. That's mandated. Guess what? You can't buy a house. The bank won't give you the mortgage.
It's true, actually, because I signed up for a new bank account a little while ago, and if I switch my phone and I move I've got like a Challenger bank, like a digital fintech bank account, and to change my password, I have to record a video of myself saying, "Hello, I'm Duncan Roberts, and I like cheese," or something,
Yeah.
and then send that off very happily because I want access to my money.
And you do like cheese, so it's an easy.
Yeah, yeah.
It was an easy. It wasn't a hard question. It's like,
No.
what do you like? Well, cheese is the main one. So
They
I
didn't-
get in.
I just added it for colour.
Yeah, they had to re-record it. Like, you stop saying you like cheese. We're just trying to take a picture. So I'd like to revise mine then. So just to be clear, I think I'm long on the concept. But short. I don't know. I'm sure I'm undecided on whether or not Worldcoin is the one to do it. It sounds innovative. It sounds like it would solve some problems, and I think that's the name of the game right now. Where I guess if we were to do it like from an equity analyst point of view, which we shouldn't, because neither of us are that. The first question I'd ask is the problem big enough now and in the future for something so massive, right? So
I guess that's a conversation for maybe another episode, which is where we talk about, is the super intelligence, or is not even the super intelligence, but is AI at a point where it is taking those jobs away or not? I mean, we have a fairly good idea of the scale that it might be, but is that actually going to happen? It's pretty arguable at the moment.
Yeah, and if it does, what is the impact?
Yeah,
right. So is if there is a super AI intelligence, or whatever it is, or general AI, whatever the phrase is that people adopt, is it going to be purely negative in this realm, or will it counteract? So will you be able to quite easily apply an incredibly intelligent piece of software to combat and be like, no, this is a human, and I know that, without having to go through really invasive measures because I've analysed all of the data, and this is what a human would do.
That bit is actually a bicycle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they tick the box and everything. They tick the capture box. So a bot wouldn't do anything as boring as that repeatedly. Like, and at points that could even be the human thing. It's just like, you can tell by the way they were clicking, they were getting more frustrated the more captures we made them fill out. Some websites make you do 3.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought I did this.
Ended up in like some eternal capture thing where I've either had to rotate some kind of elephant, choose what's a ladder or a motorbike, or try and read some text that's just like, is that a Y, an F, a 16? God knows.
Yeah. And in that context, the kind of the number crunching and signal reading competitor to the bad AI, if we call it crudely that, might look at that and be like, this Duncan guy has gone through 10 of these, which is a uniquely automation-y thing to do, because most humans after 3 would go like, oh, forget it.
Yeah,
I didn't want to go on that website anyway.
But I guess then the answer to that is the super intelligence would be able to mimic a human completely. But like,
sure,
that's maybe a conversation for another time. But I guess the point is there's a tip, like you say, there's a tipping point. At what point is it more preferable to do that than it is to not? And we're not there just yet.
Yeah, fair. So should we move on to universal basic income? Because I think that's really interesting. It's incredibly controversial, and I know it's semi-linked to this, because I know, but again, based on your description, this is an area that they're exploring, but it's also quite a big philosophical, societal, and economic question.
Yeah.
And do we get to do a different vote on this one? So can I be long on one and short on the other? Can I be?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
They are different enough.
I don't think there's an overarching orb near us that's telling us that we need to only do one vote. So I think you're okay to do it.
That's handy. That is handy. So I mean, I'm long on universal basic income is the short answer, I guess. So I think based on our analysis, based on a lot of analysis. No, sure. Yes, it's the short answer. Yeah.
Yes,
based on some of the research that we've done, but also a lot of the research out there, I think AI is going to impact the world of work quite significantly. I think we've seen that already in some areas. I don't think it's going to be as, I know there's kind of one school of thought which is like humans will never work again. It'll be kind of like that Star Trek world where it's permanent leisure and stuff like that, and everything is kind of automated around you. And I don't think that's true at all. It seems incredibly unlikely we'll move into that realm. In fact, generally what happens is the more free time people have, the more leisure services they consume, which creates employment in the leisure industry, and you end up kind of just over-indexing in that direction. So I don't think it'll be that extreme, but at the same time, I don't think there'll be nothing. I think there will be significant impact to some of the forms of work that we do, and that will drive greater productivity, which will need to be redistributed in a way that's fair. And this is an age-old conversation, a deeply political conversation in some areas, which is, do you tax that productivity that say like a business is generating that value that they're generating without employees, and then redistribute it to workers and citizens? Or are there other forms that you can do? Because the reality with universal basic income is that money has to come from somewhere. So it has to come from tax.
Like, as a kind of Philistine, like when I'm talking about technology, I can harp on for ages, and when I'm talking about stuff like more political, philosophical, economic arguments, I'm a bit of a idiot, to be simple. Isn't that just the benefit system as it stands? You know, like there will be. We talk about, and everybody talks about, there's going to be jobs created by AI that otherwise didn't exist. And like you say, those might be jobs that are to do with AI. They might be jobs that aren't. They might be those leisure industry jobs that you talk about. I think there's a problem with, there's quite an interesting Radio 4 show that I listened to ages ago called The Problem of Leisure. And it's all about how people can't just do leisure all the time. Yeah. They want to work. And like you say, leisure creates work in itself. We create all these jobs. People will do different things, but then other people will not, and they will get some sort of UBI. But UBI is just a sexy name for benefits that we have already, and those benefits just change.
It is, right. So at its core, what you're describing here is the redistribution of wealth to one form or another. And in most places, that is, I mean, the UK it's the benefit system. I think in the US it's probably called the welfare system. I'm not sure, but that's the gist, right? Is via taxes we're going to fund the following things, the following programs which will help people that have been left behind or whatever it is. I think the difference with the universal basic income is just a stronger stance in the redistribution of wealth, where effectively wealth generation is so top heavy that the simplest, easiest and fairest thing to do is take a cut of it and give everyone some, rather than focusing on others. Now, part of that redistribution program can't just be like, well, look, everyone's got this bit of money now, end of. So there's no additional support, there's no additional welfare or no additional benefits. Like those things have to go hand in hand, and it's all part of the redistribution program. And the most important one, and this is kind of the stumbling block for a lot of people, is how do you fund that? Because you can't just go, okay, well, look, we're going to, Bank of England, Federal Reserve, we're going to create an extra £2,000, $2,000 for every citizen, and you get that every year, and you can go off and buy things, because it's going to cause inflation and other challenges. So it has to come from somewhere. It has to be taxed from somewhere and taken from somewhere in the existing kind of monetary system to be redistributed. Otherwise, you just create another problem. We've all been through hyperinflation, where effectively through the pandemic, this isn't the only cause, but through the pandemic, we saw a lot of a huge increase in welfare and benefit spending, but personally, in my view, rightly so. So things like direct transfer of payments, whatever, to make sure that people got through that very difficult period. But at the end of it, it created a problem where people had just more money than they would have otherwise, and were spending that money. And it meant in the global market and in your local market, people are outbidding each other and driving up prices. There was a supply side issue to that part of the story too, which wasn't insignificant, but that's basically what happened. So the money has to come from somewhere. And I think the taxation part, and this again is probably for another, hey, are we long or short tax? That would be an interesting one to do. But how you tax that is challenging. So do you tax profits? Do you tax revenue? Some of the conversation is, do you tax? So if a bot replaces a human, let's say, do you tax the bot as if it was a human, and then that money goes into, so effectively bots pay income tax? Do people have bots assigned to them in this utopian world? So you have a bot worker that works on your behalf and kind of creates value and revenue that is then paid to you in a salary. Like those parts are all unanswered questions that I think are challenging and obviously deeply political. So I think Elon Musk, and I'm sorry, Elon, if you're listening, which of course you are listening. I think he's pro UBI, thinks, hey, like the humans won't work in the future, but by the same token does not want to be taxed on it because he thinks it'll hamper innovation and productivity. Well, you can't have both. Yeah. Realistically, you can't have both. So if your super company with hardly any employees is generating this huge amount of wealth for like one person, you can't not be taxed on that. You know, something has to happen for that value to then be redistributed to all the people that now don't work for UBI to work at all. Or else what you're doing is creating this kind of dystopian hellscape where one person literally has all of the money and no one has any money. And then realistically, what would happen in that scenario is the money that person has just becomes pointless because no one would accept it. Because no one else has it. It doesn't become a medium of trade anymore.
I'm going to say, that's a very helpful explanation. Thank you. I was going to say, I'm short on UBI as a concept because I think for a few of those reasons that you said, but also there's a little bit of like pure hope there that I don't think it's going to be required. I hope it's not going to be required because I think there will be enough jobs and enough work and enough fulfillment for people to work and earn an income that they need anyway. So, and that the benefit system, as flawed as it is in some cases, will still be required and be kind of reformed to be more helpful to people. So I'm going to say I'm short on it, but because I hope that other forms of support will be enough. Now, if the superintelligence comes along, puts us all out of a job, I'm not going to turn down a UBI.
Sure.
But I just kind of hope that we wouldn't be in that position.
I would add one quick personal distinction. Again, just my opinion. I think it's needed now. So I'm not long in the AI-enabled future. I'm long now. I think inequality globally is so extensive that UBI now. But we don't need to wait for everyone to become unemployed by like an AI super state with Elon Musk at the helm. Sorry, Elon, if that's again, if you're listening, which you definitely are, alongside Bill, no doubt, probably together, probably together.
A listening party right now.
That's right. Yeah, they're a listening party. Or we're with them in the listening party, and now we're getting awkward glances. And I hope that's not the case, future Ollie and Duncan. But in any case, like that inequality, I think, is an issue that we need to think very deeply about now. Potentially even more so, potentially even more profoundly if people can't get meaningful employment because of AI. And I go back to the point where I don't think that's going to happen. I'm with you. I don't think the future is mass unemployment. I think there's plenty of work. I did some number crunching on one of the biggest areas is AI's use in generative AI specifically is use in software code development. And obviously everyone's going, well, it's the end of the developer. Well, if you look at some of the numbers that we've pulled, Duncan, on some of the research that we've done over the years, and you get the maximum productivity gain. So I can't remember what the exposure score we created, which is the amount of tasks a developer does that could be automated by generative AI at a theoretical level. I think it's probably around 60%. Yeah. So if every developer in the world right now was not improved. God, that sounds dystopian, doesn't it? 60% of their tasks were automated, so they could spend 60% of their time doing other stuff, doing other value add. There still would not be enough developers in the world. Yeah. So just as like it's just one example, but think about doctors, nurses, everything. There is a talent shortage everywhere. So even if you could automate huge amounts of work, there's always more work, right? It just seems to be this insatiable. And that's assuming our technological baseline, our healthcare requirements, our demographics remain exactly as they are into the future, which we know is not the case. And so we need even more developers and even more doctors.
Distributed evenly across the world. And like I take your point about UBI being needed now, and that kind of speaks to my point about reform in the benefit system. And that's not just in the UK, that's worldwide. And that's redistribution of wealth. So call it UBI or not, we need a fairer world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's needed now. Maybe the super intelligence, when AGI comes along, it will be the spur for the world to be better. But somehow, I have a feeling it won't. So, yeah,
I
I'm
agree. I think
there was as a concept.
There was a period during the pandemic, which was obviously a very challenging time, where there was this kind of glimmer of hope on the environment. I don't know if you remember. I think it was 2020. I can't remember.
And when like rivers were running clean and like the air was clean.
Exactly. And people were just like, hey, this is no way to live. I think it was around 2019. I think it was the first, because there was this big, huge kind of conversation around 2020. You know, our vision was 2020. We've finally seen what the world should be. And like, fast forward, like 4 years?
Back to square one.
Back to where we were, and I think that'll be the case. And also, that was unique in that it happened sort of at once. Really, it was just like, okay, well, you're not allowed to leave your house now, and it happened in an incredibly short amount of time. The encroachment of AI, I think, will be very gradual, and much like we don't now talk about like, hey, if people are migrating to the cloud, then that's going to fundamentally change the nature of IT infrastructure, and we need to think about how we tax it. Because it happened over a gradual period, it's just, you know, no one thought about it.
Yeah.
And there have been other automation technologies like RPA, which I was an analyst for a long time covering. A very similar conversation, like, hey, if RPA can do the work that an FAA, a finance and accounting worker can do, a finance and accounting analyst can do we tax that bot? So is that bot taxed? You know, and RPA is incredibly prevalent now, and we're not taxing those bots, right? Because it makes no sense to. But by the same time, we don't have mass unemployment as a result of RPA.
Yeah, I guess this is the distinction. We're straying, right, which is fine, but we're straying into kind of other topics that we can definitely cover in more detail another time. But this is the distinction between an AI agent-enabled future where you have bots doing work and AGI, the super intelligence, where all of a sudden the intelligence kind of just gets more and more intelligent exponentially, and all of a sudden, you know, we don't know what that's going to do. That's not automation. That's complete, you know, overtaking of control. So, gosh, who knows? We live in exciting times. So, Ollie, right, okay, we're going to take our final bets. Let's talk about Worldcoin and UBI as a singular concept for now, like one vote, right? Technology-enabled universal basic income that uses biometrics to ensure your humanity, long or short.
Bundled up, it's incredibly difficult, I have to say. When it's bundled up, it's quite hard, because I can't. So from an identity verification point of view, I don't know how you would do it if not technologically.
This is a politician's answer, right? Mate. I asked you.
No, I'm getting there. And it is a politician's answer, because what I hope is that the audience just lose interest in what I'm saying. Yeah. I, you know, whatever. I mean, presumably we've just got Elon Musk and Bill Gates listening now, because everyone else has been like, this is dull. Whereas they're just like, what else are these guys going to say about this?
Yeah, I think Jensen Huang's the only person left.
Yeah, fair. Good. Well, Jensen, this one's for you.
Hey, Jensen.
I'm still long in that case. I'm still long. I think the need for a solution at scale is more necessary, I think, than not across the board. Now, whether or not I would decouple a lot of those segments, though, just to be clear, I don't think I would have one technological behemoth doing all aspects of it. Being like, you're a human, here is your pellet of money for the day, you know, because that is dystopian. I can't imagine. But as a concept, I can't think of any other solution that would exist other than like reverting to a barter economy where you can physically see the person in front of you and be like, yeah, you seem human, you know? So yeah, long.
I'm going to agree with you. I think long on the concept, maybe short on this particular implementation, because right today, but long on the concept in the long term and the need for it and some sort of technological implementation. I mean, the amount of times I look on like Reddit threads and stuff and people say, this thread is full of bots. And I'm like, well, I couldn't tell. I have no idea. I'm a Philistine. I don't know how people can tell. But clearly there's a lot more kind of, you know, people who live on the internet day by day than me.
It's worse when you're just like, yeah, and I agree with a lot of these bots.
Yeah,
I know. These are my friends, actually.
Yeah. All right, cool. So, end of the first episode. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back soon with another topic. See you later.
Cheerio.